with Highway 61 on it. We are live, Michael. Tell them who we are and why we're here.
My good friend New York Vinnie Riccici is in Seattle, Washington. I'm Michael Knight. I'm in Pasadena, California, in greater LA County. Today we are here with a morose, mellifluous, monotonous, money lending Monday. And the news, as usual, it's not that it's good or it's bad, it's just weird. We're trying to put one president in jail. We're trying to get food from one side of the island to the other. We're trying to calm down enough to be a country that doesn't hate itself to the point where it can't get anything done. And we're trying to figure out why rats eat the engines of American and imported cars. And now we know why. They're delicious.
Yes, they're delicious. There's no doubt about it that the automakers, in their infinite wisdom, to try to be, I don't know if it's politically correct. Let's say environmentally savvy. Okay,
Plant-based, secure.
right. They have decided that many of the automakers. This has been going on for a few years. Not anything new that anybody knows about cars uh, would know about, but they have made when you look under your car, you see a bunch of wiring harnesses that go to the alternator, to the generator, to the fuel injection, to the
They go to important places. Those
important
wires do
places
go.
the car needs
Yeah,
to run. They need to get
yeah,
electricity to run.
damn right.
And in those, used to be they used to have like a plastic coating that used to go on top of them. And
Not the least bit delicious. I've had
it
some of
would
that. It's
almost
not.
look like a masking tape. Not
Yeah,
masking
right.
tape, but electrical tape.
Hmm.
And it was kind of derivative of electrical tape, and they would take the 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever, how many harness wires were in the harnesses, and they put them in there and wrap them up and send them to where they were going to go to on the car. And the rats in the junkyards and in the parking garages of America would, see these things and they'd go,
You could probably eat that.
I can go get a pizza somewhere else.
Yeah,
And they
easily.
take off, no bother. But in the rush to be environmentally conscious, the car company said, "Well, we can make a material that will wrap around those wires that is made out of some kind of derivative of corn."
It's a soy lizard mix. It tastes a
Yeah,
little like a lizard, but it's really just soy.
yeah, it's soy.
It's called the impossible
Did I
lizard.
say corn? I'm sorry. I meant to say soy. And now the rats go and they go,
What's that?
"Hey, Charlie, get over here." Hey,
Why is there always a rat named Charlie, and why is he always in the rear? You can never get Charlie to lead the rats.
Charlie,
Boiney
get
leads the
over here.
rats.
Look. And they look up at all them wires in that car and they say, "Man, we got 2, 3 days here at least."
Yeah,
So they call the other rats over, and Babbitt comes over, "Hey, Babbitt! Hey, Babbitt!" And many other rats come over. Half of the Trump administration is there for dinner. And they just go to work on those coverings.
and they don't tip you. Rats are traditionally not very good tippers, but in
Not
this
very
case,
good.
they might leave a note saying, "If you don't want us to eat your car, don't build your car with soy-based lizard meat."
That's probably the only way you're going to stop them, other than putting a cover on the bottom of the car, which actually some manufacturers are now doing
Seal the area.
to make it very hard for a rat to climb up into the engine compartment. They put them bottom covers. They were also for they're finding out that they're good for aerodynamics,
Yeah.
but really, when it comes down to it, it's just like a big buffet area for a rat.
The funny thing is, if you're not aware of this, and a friend of mine in Marin just had her car eaten by a number of rats. She didn't get their names. I think Blaney might have been there, and certainly Babette, and maybe Charlie if he was
Hey,
always late.
Babbitt!
And there you go. They ate the car and totaled the car. She didn't
Yeah,
bump it. She didn't even have to get behind the wheel for the car to be totaled. And that's just a fascinating slice of life. If there are tiny little bugs in space that eat stuff like that. Be sure to not build your space shuttles out of soy-based lizard meat because they'll be eaten in. Or you wake up in the morning in the orbit and your pressure seals are starting to fade. It's not just bad news; it's the last news you're going to get.
Well, do rats, if the rats are outside, well, I guess they could be inside and then get out of their cages
Good point.
and,
Martian rats,
or yeah, just regular rats that they take up there for experiments.
right?
I mean, when we left, we had 500 rats. Now I only count 498. Well, you know what? That means the two of them are roaming around this spaceship because you can't get out of it. So they're in this thing, they're oxygenated, and they are hungry.
And they're eating the plant-based connective tissue of all our sealants and cockpit uh, controls.
Which means it will only be a matter of time.
Well, pretty soon, you know how it is. If you ever have a car, you can only make left turns because you can't make a right turn in that car. There are
I've had a car that's been that I've had a car that has been similar to that, where you couldn't. It was easier to make a left turn than it was a right turn.
tires rubbing against tires rubbing against metal, things like that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly. The car.
you can sort of get where you're going if you can only make left turns, but not in space.
Yeah, straight and left, you're okay. Making a right can be a little troublesome.
That's why they have body shops, and that's why the estimate was so high.
Well, the car came out of a body shop. I mean, it just wasn't repaired right.
Well, it wasn't the result of an accident of some sort. They had already
No,
been
it
to see
was,
a
it was the
mechanic.
result of an accident, but the guy didn't want the car anymore. So he says, I'll keep the insurance check. You give me, $100 or whatever it was, $200, and you can have the car. So I bought the car, and it didn't look really bad, but the right side A-frame, the right side suspension was pushed back a few inches, but not enough that it was back so far that you couldn't drive the car. But when you hung the new fender on the car and everything, and a quarter nose and everything, slapped it on,
Ain't
but
going to work.
it worked. No, it worked, except that you could make a left. The car tracked down the street like this. You
Yeah.
know, if you want to make a right, the inside of the tire, rubbed up against the chassis,
And that's called a problem.
and that's called in any language a problem. But it didn't do it if you turned the other way or you went straight. It was perfect. It's just when you had to make a right. So I had to get girlfriends for about 6 months that I could only go to their house by turning right, by turning left.
Vinny, where the hell are you? I am accessing your
On that
neighborhood
side
now.
of Northern Boulevard, I can't pick you up.
I'm so close, but I can get no further.
You got to meet me on this side of the street. But the car ran good. I mean, ran really fast.
I was behind a Altima the other day whose front tires were like a foot to the left of the lineup of the rear tires, and so it looked like it was going on the highway at an angle. And I just wondered what terrible sort of accident it had to juke it up like that, and who put it back on the street without fixing it in a kind of an odd way.
Or was it done intentionally to, with spacers, because that's kind of a cool lowrider look?
Yeah, it didn't. It had a homemade auto repair written all over it. I don't know
Yeah.
how. Or somebody had an accident with an 18-wheeler and they just said, "We can fix this. This car's not totaled."
That's what happens. Now, what I could have done for that wheel, I guess, thinking back on it, I just decided to sell the car. Is I could have put spacers between the brake drum and the rim and pushed the tire out a little bit. It would have screwed up the alignment of the car. Well, the alignment was screwed up already, but it would have gave it enough space to make that turn in the wheel well.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't do that. I just said, you know what? I'm not going to mess with this car. I paid practically nothing for it.
It's the first of many problems.
Buy it.
Take this car off my hands.
Good price. I'll tell them what's wrong with it. They want to fix it, they can fix it. And if they don't, they don't.
This car looks good, but it has an interesting smell. What you're smelling is the soy-based lizard meat that we've used to cover all
We
the.
wrapped our wires in.
Yeah,
Cars are funny things, man. You see people do some funny stuff to
make
make
that car
repairs
go.
to cars, Michael.
Yeah,
You, you know, I mean, I've been around that stuff for long enough, and I've done some things to repair a car that you just wouldn't believe. You know, you just you sit there and the car's stuck, and you're going, well, what the hell? You know, I had a car stuck once. There was something wrong with the with there was something in the gas tank. Somehow somebody had either put something in the gas tank or the gas had become contaminated. And I'm out in the country, man. I mean, I'm out upstate New York. You know, there's nothing except these little country hole gas stations that are closed on Sunday.
you should have
Except
pulled into Bob. You should have pulled into Bob Feller's garage. He's open on the weekends.
our fellas was only they only play cards on the weekends. That's the problem there. So, but it was a little place like Fellas Garage, and I pull in, and guy says, "I'm sorry, you know, he's got like some high school kid there pumping gas." Says, "I can't help you. I don't really know anything about cars." I said, "Well, it's okay if I scrap around and use some of your tools." He says, "Yeah, well, there's a few tools over there." The boss locks them up. So basically, what I did is I took a antifreeze can, filled it up with gasoline, unhooked the line from the gas tank, laid the gasoline can, the can with the gasoline inside the fender, tied it up there so it wouldn't fall, put a rubber hose from the carburetor into that gasoline and made my own gas tank
Good grief!
and drove it home.
You bypassed the gas tank to get to the new gas tank.
Yeah, I just made my own gas tank and said, you know, and then when I got it home, I pulled down the gas tank and somebody had dumped some sugar or something in my gas tank.
Ooh. I
And
wonder if
so
that was Donna. Was that Donna? She was really mad at you.
Donna would never do that. I had a list of suspects that I've long ago forgot. Uh, but and that's how I got the car home from upstate. You know,
Great
I had
idea.
a 5 gallon can that I bought, and I filled that up with gas. And every, you know, 20 miles or so. I mean, in those days, you got 20 miles to the gallon. Every 20 miles or so, you had to pull over and fill the gas tank again.
What about your warranty? Did that would that under normal circumstances?
The warranty had long packed up and left on this car.
That's the way it is with warranties. They're happy there for a while. You wake up one day, they're gone, and you never see them
Warranty
leave.
had long. Matter of fact, this car's warranty was done before Elvis had his first hit record.
Well, that was like 1952.
Well, this was a 51 Pontiac, so I would have to.
All right, I approve.
But, you
Now,
know, cars were like that in those days. They were simple. You could do things like that. I mean, I don't know that you could do that today with a car.
if you see a Humphrey Bogart movie and he's a hard-boiled detective in Los Angeles, and it's film noir. It's always night. It's always raining. It's always dark. There's palm trees, but there's no sunsets. There's no sunny days at the beach. It's a dark movie. He's always driving a little coupe car. It's a two-door, and it's like a 1947 Plymouth or something. And it's the most nondescript little thing, but he takes it everywhere. Never gives him a bit of problems. Its warranty has long since flown the coop, but that old Plymouth seems to work for him. And I just wondered how they decided editorially in their minds, what's Bogart going to drive in this movie? It's a dark movie. We're only going to see the car at night. What's he going to be? Should he have a Lincoln Continental or a Cadillac Eldorado? No. Totally wrong for this character. Something smaller, something gray, something dark green, something post-war, something, yeah, a Plymouth. There you go.
Well,
And
there's people that make a lot of money. I was at one time I wanted to be one of those people. In fact, I always wanted to be one of those people.
a
You
car
know,
advisor.
yeah, who would like look at cars and say, okay, this is the kind of car that character fits.
Right.
This is the kind of car, the years and models of cars that these people should be driving in this movie. I always thought that would be. There's two jobs that I wanted in entertainment. Three, really. I wanted to be either an actor, I wanted to be an automotive consultant
Yeah, yeah.
so that I could, find cars and, and secure cars for the studio, go out and scout cars and stuff like that and find them and, exactly period correct cars for that particular movie.
We need a movie made about the rat fink days of car modification and pinstriping and all the wonderful things that started happening out of Southern California and other places. Um, there
Yeah,
hasn't been a movie about that.
we need an Ed Big Daddy Roth
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
movie. It's really, I think, what it kind of comes down to is we need. I think you're right. I think the time is right for a movie that encapsulates that whole California hot rod scene
The
of
custom, the customized hot
the
rods.
customizing, right? The George Barrises and the Dean Jeffreys, and how that was such a huge. I mean, I don't know that people today realize how huge and intense that was. And that's where I got the idea, actually, for being the guy that would go out and find cars, was from reading a lot and about George Barris. Because I thought that guy and Ed Big Daddy Roth, but more George Barris, because George Barris really provided. Ed was kind of on his own
Yeah.
little thing there, but boy, George Barris. I mean, he was building cars that were in movies and TV shows.
We
You
need a
know,
Batmobile. I'll get you a Batmobile. Oh, then he froze. But I'm still here, I think. Or maybe I froze and Vinny's gone. How are we going to get him back? Well, I can tell a story. That always works. This is a cup of coffee. For the last 20 days, I've been fighting insomnia and falling asleep at inappropriate times as a result of it. And 2 days in a row, both Saturday and Sunday of this last week, yesterday, I got the morning coffee in this cup, which was a gift from my daughter. That's why I drink it out of this cup. And promptly fell asleep on the couch and doused myself with the coffee. Not once, but twice. And I can tell you that the dream world that we enter when we go into REM sleep and have dreams about uh, cars or whatever the case may be is always interesting. It's a fun place to go, whether you bid to go there or just end up traveling there in your sleep. But to have that particular destination interrupted with hot coffee on the crotch, well, it's unique. That's all I want to say. That's a wake up call and we all get wake up calls, or we think that was that a wake up call? Did the Giants finally get a wake up call this weekend when they played the Texas Rangers, or are they still waiting for the wake up call? Are the people who would normally have been awakened by the wake up call on board right now, or are they still a little fuzzy? Did you not learn from the first time you dropped hot coffee in your crotch that if you fall asleep on the couch that way, you will pay a dividend that is, well, uncomfortable is a good way to start. It was an uncomfortable experience. Or will you, like I did, just try it one more time? What's the chance? What are the chances? Well, no one answered that question. So I did it again. Second time was considerably more uncomfortable than the first time. So I think I've learned my lesson. This is the inside is coffee. Whether I drop it on my crotch today during this conversation with Vinny, or whether I survive the moment is anybody's guess. But now that Vinny has come back, my coffee story is over, and
I
welcome
would
to
have
the
liked to
show.
have heard it, but I was working
Well,
on getting us back on the intranet.
the short version is twice this weekend, I fell asleep with my coffee on my lap on the couch. And that was a rude awakening. I fell asleep, but I did not stay asleep very long.
No, no.
I,
Once that hot coffee hits you,
yeah, I've noticed. I think, and Vinny, you couldn't be more right. Once it hits you, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, it'll wake you up.
And
It wakes
and yeah, and damned if you aren't awake and ready for the challenges of the day.
Yeah. Oh man. But oh yeah, we were talking about Dean Jeffries and the whole car scene. Yeah, I think that's there is a ton of movies that have been that I think are without a doubt, um, I think would be interesting to people and would be with the right team writing it, with the right bunch of people writing it. And believe me, there's a lot of writers around now not writing much of anything.
In fact, the writers' strike is already over the 100-day mark. We're like at 105 now, so it's turning out to be an extensive work stoppage.
And great time to write a book.
Terrible time to publish it. Great time to write it.
Yeah.
As after Simon and Schuster just got purchased.
Who bought Simon and Schuster?
Um, KKR, Cole Kravitz Investments.
So CBS divested themselves of them, huh?
Yep, just like they did their radio network, which turned into with being operated other than by the Tiffany network, the CBS radio network, and the top of the hour news and all that stuff went into receivership, and now Odyssey, the new name for CBS, has taken CBS radio stock to the point where it doesn't exist. It's penny stock. They don't even sell it over the counter. It is as worthless as if it were Cumulus stock.
CBS was a hell of, I mean, you talk about,
The Tiffany network.
boy, man, that's,
And they said it and they meant it. Tiffany Network.
yeah.
It was a point of pride that they were the best.
And even in the days where they weren't sure, I mean, I got there. I worked for CBS 2 times. You worked for CBS, I don't know, 3 times, 4 times,
Twice.
twice. So we're even. I didn't realize that. I worked there twice. Once in San Francisco and then once in Pittsburgh, and it was an experience. The one thing that you could count on though is if they it was a standard.
There was a book written
There
by.
was a book. There was a book that told you you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this,
Yep.
and you don't do this, so you're out.
Yep.
And
I've told this story before, but once at KRQR during the morning show, we pretended that we were at Cape Canaveral for a missile launch. Once we pretended we were in a helicopter at another event. Sound effects. We got a note from legal in New York saying that we had violated CBS standards by saying we were somewhere where we were not, doing something that we weren't doing, and took the audience into a position where they had to believe what we said was happening when we knowingly had lied to them. We had made false statements in
right.
their name, and legal says, this is something that you did on behalf of this corporation. You don't have the right to speak for this corporation when you're not telling the truth. And it was, I mean, they didn't fine us or anything. We didn't get suspended. We weren't fired, but it was made clear that if you say you're in Maui, you damn well you better be standing on the sands of Maui.
Right. I had a similar incident with that. Well, you know what? When we put Drive Time on the air as an hour show, they actually sent a lawyer from New York, and I had to sit down and I had to spell out the whole show for him, what we were going to do, whether what I thought the exposures of liability might be, and they originally did not want to put it on the air. They did not want you recommending a car on the air, and I said, "They're not recommendations.
They're critiques.
They're critiques." It's like the same thing as if you're I forget who the guy was at the time who was the theater critic, and luckily I knew CBS really well.
Yeah.
So I knew how this works. So I said, well, this is the same thing as your theater critic in New York saying that that brand new Broadway play, Pots and Pots, is the damn best play he's ever seen. And so people rush to Pots and Pots, and it's a horrible play.
Yeah.
It's a disgusting play. It's your theater critic's opinion of what the play is. But thousands have gone and seen that play because I forget, maybe it was Joel Siegel at the time. It was
I remember him.
the theater critic. I said that what you're doing is you're observing something and giving an opinion. It's not. I'm not endorsing a car. I'm not telling people to go out and buy this car over any other car. The only time that ever happens is if I do a comparison and I say this is better on this car than that car. And if I say that, I defy anybody at CBS or anywhere else to tell me that it's not true. I'm not doing this because I want a free car. I'm doing this because I want to expel the information about the cars out to different people.
What did
All
he
listeners.
say?
It's a service for our listeners.
He signed
And
off.
and they said, wait outside. I think 5 minutes later they came back. Okay, go ahead with the show. Good luck.
Great.
It was boom. And had I not been gone from KDKA, there was probably a pretty good chance that feature, Drive Time, was going to wind up on every CBS station in the country because they liked it and they hadn't heard anything like it before. One of the lawyers was there. Cars, wow, you could make some money with this.
Remember, the Beach Boys sold more records doing car songs, She's So Fine, My 409, than they did about surfing songs. Surfing is the only way, the only life for me. So surf
Right.
with me. And the reason is pretty obvious. A lot more people drive cars than surf. A lot more
Anybody can
people.
drive. Anybody can relate to driving a car.
Yeah.
There's only a certain small amount of the population of that age group or any age group that can relate to jumping on a surfboard. I mean, they're there and they look and they're at the beach and it looks cool. But out of the 10,000 people on the beach, what do you have, 25 out there?
And also, you can't take your surfboard via the ocean to school or to the shopping center. You got to drive. And that was the whole thing about making a statement, Southern California style, with your GTO, going to high school, going to the show, going to the car wash, wherever you're on your way to. You can have a surfboard on top if you want. That just adds to the mystique. But they really tapped into the Western consciousness and how that plays out in places that have never been to California. Surf, palm trees, freeways, GTOs, that makes sense to somebody who's never seen that, from Kansas, from South Carolina, from Montana. Surfing, well, that's a little harder picture to imagine. You can imagine yourself on a surfboard, but it's a lot easier to imagine yourself behind the wheel of a GTO.
Well, when I was I don't know, 9, 10 years old, let's say, that would have been right in that wheelhouse, 63, 64.
Yep.
I heard those Beach Boys songs, and it built up this, and what was the TV show? Gidget.
Oh, God.
And I saw a Californian and saw the surf movies, went to the movies to see, the Frankie and Annette movies, and I looked at that, and it struck me as a kid that was into cars. In New York, there was a lot of kids that were into cars and stuff, but it wasn't king. The car wasn't king. In California, the car was king.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember how many times I asked my father, why don't we move to California? They have gas stations on every corner out there. The gas stations have canopies on them so you don't get wet when it rains. You don't get sunburned. People come in. They love their car. I mean, and this was at 9 or 10 years old. That and Mayor Sam Yardy. Because
Mayor Sam.
Mayor Sam, because Red Skelton used to talk about him all the time. And I wanted to meet Mayor Sam Yardy. But it was this land that if you followed, you followed movie, you followed media, and you followed. There were books out like Drag Cartoons, the Millar Group magazines that were drag cartoons, and all the hot rod magazines had pictures of George Barris and Dean Jeffries and Gene Winfield and all of those car guys.
And Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Yeah, that all these people that were doing that this was just the place you wanted to be if you were into cars. It was just it was you know, how could I not go out there and be successful and get a job and be a, you know, at the very least a body man, putting, you know, creating and putting these things. I had notebooks full of cars that I had drawn, you know, and as did almost every kid in those days. So you know, you draw a car on anything.
Yes.
And I just didn't make it out there in time because once once pot in Vietnam hit the scene, it kind of changed.
Sure did. The funny thing about those cultural days is that we think of them as being over. But when you go on the freeways here in Southern California, what you see so much now is who's driving the electric Lamborghini, who's driving the new electric monster car, who's got the Hellcat. You know, there are some people who they don't care about the batteries; they just want 700 horses. Well, you'll see them all on the freeway. That's the interesting thing about the car being king. It's because we're of the Southern California sprawl. Like it takes me 45 minutes to get to my daughter's house in Woodland Hills. It's not that far away. It's just that I got to use two freeways to get there. The 134 to the 101. Bingo. Well, that's easy to say, but it's still going to take you 40 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
And in that 40 minutes, I tell you week after week, oh, Vinny, I saw Alfa Romeo. Vinny, I saw a weird Jaguar F4, whatever it was, or can't recall. I think that was the
Well,
number.
it's a great car spotting area, and
My God.
one of the things that I want to do, and I'm going to make it a point to do in the next year, is I want to get down and I want to do a couple of shows from Southern California, definitely from the NHRA Museum in Pomona,
Hmm.
and I want to do a show from or with Jay Leno because he's
Yeah,
got one of the best collections.
he's a true car freak.
Yeah, and sit and do maybe even a couple of shows with him. Uh, you know, one maybe on his collection and one maybe on just his love of cars because I
And
think.
it's funny how a car can play a part and be a character. Remember Seinfeld did those interviews, Coffee with Chris
Oh
Rock?
yeah,
The part
comedians and
I
cars with coffee.
the part I loved is when they're driving the Corvette or whatever souped up car he's got that week to the area. There's just the two guys with their little cameras on the dashboard, talking and laughing, going to the coffee shop. But they're going in a nice car. They're going in an interesting car. They're going in a car that's a character in the story. And that was my favorite part because, hey, Jerry's really driving. Hey, Chris Rock is really sitting next to him, giving him hell on the way to the place. It made it real and relatable and another interesting page in the story.
And it's one way where you can take a machine and make it part of the show, the
Yeah.
character of the show. If you're just driving it down the street, yeah, people are kind of looking, you know, but when you park that car and you get out, you know, and people come up to you and they talk to you about it. I can't tell you how many times I've taken something interesting, um, sometimes even something not so interesting. I mean, I was driving the Toyota Prius last week, and I had it parked. I was over in Coeur d'Alene, and I had it parked in the parking lot at Coeur d'Alene. I, you know, just parked it, and I was going to go take a walk to find my friend's band. And two people came up to me and started talking to me about it.
Wow.
I figure in the what is it 30 years that we've been doing this drive time thing. We started it back with Brad Boyer back at KJR back in '93. I absolutely think I've sold over 1,000 cars to people. just by showing them the car and getting them excited about it.
And there are so many choices now. It's not unusual for someone to say, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I should buy. I don't know what's a good purchase. I don't know what's going to age well and be my car 10 years from now. I don't know these things. And it's pretty hard to find a motor magazine that's going to tell you the answer to those questions because they don't always, they err on the side of the manufacturer when it comes to information and judgment.
Well, what you always have to remember, Michael, is that 95% of the press that reviews a car in a magazine or on YouTube have been taken to a media junket, flown there by the manufacturer,
Yeah. Wine and dine.
wined and dined, told all the great things about the car while they're half in the bag, and then they go and they write these wonderful things about the cars, whether they be true or not true. And I'm not casting dispersions on anybody. Everybody got to run their business the way they run their business. But there's a lot more people in this business who are doing this to take the free trips
Yeah.
than there are to, tell you what that car is about.
Also, who stacks up SUVs of a similar price against one another and says the one you should buy is the Audi, the one you should buy is the
Consumer
Ford?
Reports, and I think Motor Trend does it. But those I think are the only two that I really look at. And Consumer Reports is good because they buy their own cars. They don't, the one thing I do take from the car companies is I take cars.
Right.
I drive
Access
cars.
access to cars.
I have access to cars, which without it would be a nightmare, a quagmire for me. But that access comes with the understanding that you can gin me up on whatever you want to, but I'm going to write what I think about that car. And if that car sucks, that car sucks. And if that car is good. Now, fortunately, over the last 10, 15 years, there haven't been too many cars that suck. You may not like certain design elements in cars, but, it was funny. Before I got hurt, which is, 7 years now, I guess, before I got in the coma, I used to get invitations to go to all these different events. And since I got hurt, I haven't been invited to one event that wasn't
What do you think? What do you think changed?
pay to go to. I think it's what I think they cater to the to YouTubers. They cater to influencers now. I'm a dinosaur in it. Um, there's other people. I guess I have a problem with one person in a car company. She doesn't want to give me cars. This is a car company that always gave me cars. They wanted to give me a car to use 24/7. You don't have to review it. Just take a car. And she has not given me. I have not had a Nissan product since I left Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
But she's just got for whatever reason, has a chip on her shoulder for me, and will not give me one, which is okay for me.
You're just going to drive another car.
I haven't been without a car a week since I've been here. I'm cranking out 50 to 70 reviews a year.
How many review cars do you think you're out there in any given month? Hundreds?
It depends. Um, but there's enough that everybody should have a car every week. Very few weeks you're not going to get a car. I mean, I have not had a car. I have not had a car the entire time I've been back here. When I was in Pittsburgh, I might have gone 1 or 2 weeks the whole time I was there without a car, except
Here's
for
a,
when I was in the hospital.
can you think of a place right now, one of the 50 states of America, that has a real car problem because of a fire that just took place?
Oh, I would say definitely Hawaii is going to have a problem.
If you've been to Hawaii, and most people have gone, you have to get a rent-a-car because there's no other way to get around. You can't drive your car because there's way too much ocean in the way. So the rent-a-car business is a big business in Hawaii. But there's also a funky side to it because it's the tropics and people don't take care of their cars. And you could get kind of a funky Toyota and not be too surprised by it and not even bummed out because it's just taking you to the beach and taking you to dinner and taking you back to the airport when your vacation's over. But all those rental cars and all the individually privately owned cars that were exposed to that fire, what you see from upstairs when they get the overflights with the helicopters and drones, is there's cars everywhere,
Yeah.
all burned out. Now each one of those is going to take a tow to someplace just to get it out of the street so that they can bring in the food the next day. And I just want to know how they're going to proceed about that. How are they going to get that problem solved? And then how are they going to replace all those cars? How are you going to bring hundreds of cars at a given time from LA or San Francisco ports or
Well,
Seattle
that's what
ports?
you're going to have to do. I mean, you basically you're going to have to load up um, a truck, a ship
Yes, a ship.
with cars. You got to, if you're an insurance adjuster, what you're going to have to do is go out there first, make the determinant that you're liable for those cars, and you're going to have to find cars on the mainland
Wow.
and have those cars shipped over.
By the hundreds. And the funny thing is, I guess you can still see the VIN number theoretically on some of those cars.
Yeah, usually.
But if you can't, or it's been modified by the heat of the fire, just finding your car can be a problem. Well, I left it here, but I was shopping at the Safeway. I don't know where it is now. I can't find it. I can't locate where my car is.
Well, what they will do in that case, if your car is burned that far, there's places on the car where the VIN is in an almost non-noticeable spot. What they'll do is they'll either come in with a forklift, lift the car up, and look at the VIN number from the underside, and those are usually, or they'll take a partial VIN,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
the
they'll also take the I mean, they'll look at the what the guy had insured, and they'll pay him off on that car. And I don't know what the provisions are off the top of my head, but they're going to probably only give him actual cash value for the car,
yeah.
and then they're going to have to figure out a way to get a car. I would suggest that the dealers that are on Maui and the other Hawaiian islands are going to be in for some good times because they're going to be busy as rats getting cars to the island. I mean, if you have access to 1,000 cars right now,
Used or new,
decent cars, used or new, you
get them
want to
over
get
there.
to Hawaii. It won't happen this week or next week, and I think that probably FEMA will get involved in maybe covering the cost of shipping the cars.
Or control the pricing of shipping and distribution.
Right, so that there's not a bunch of people trying to make so much money they don't know what to do with. But there is, there's going to be the automotive business. There is going to be a good business for a while.
And the frustration level is kind of high because you say, "Where's your car?" Well, it was here, but I can't find it. It looks like it's among these 20 cars that are torched beyond the ability to identify them. Okay, so you want to buy a new car? No, I'll take a used one if you can get it. Well, we haven't got any cars here right now. Um, can you put a down payment on it to hold the car and you'll be first in line? I would, but my cards and my wallet and my pants are all been burned up. Well, let's go to the bank and we'll figure this out. You can't go to the bank. It too has been burned to the ground in Lahaina.
Right. Well, I think by the end of this week, as soon as it's safer for people to go back, I'm sure that the banks there and all of the uh, all of the different all of the different financial entities will have temporary places set up. Another thing that's going to be interesting to see is how many trailers they can get onto Oahu. How many these portable trailers, these FEMA trailers.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And how this interesting thing about Hawaii, uh, Oahu has a major port, but Maui does not. Maui has no port. There's no place where the big ships pull in and unload. That comes in by air from Oahu, comes in by boat from smaller concerns. But you can't take your big ship and pull it up to San Francisco and unload at a dock
Right.
because there's no dock. And there's no dredging having taken place to get the big ships in that close to the coast.
Well, I would have to think that um, the Navy is going to get involved here from Pearl Harbor,
They should.
and those ships will go to Pearl Harbor, and from Pearl Harbor they'll be offloaded onto boats. That, even if they put them on LSTs and drive the LSTs up to the beach, and then roll the cars off onto the beach and up to the, you know, up to where there's a road. There's a few places there where the road's right next to the beach,
Yeah, most places.
and they're going to have to, they're going to have to. Maybe they're going to get the beach dirty, but if they want cars,
Well, they want cars, they want everything. Right now, it's been how many days since the fire? A week?
a week.
That means all the food that went bad in all the grocery stores because there was no power. Gesundheit ist beste aus Krankheit.
Okay.
So the problems become multiplied one on top of the other because you just can't do that in Maui. Well, we'll bring in the trucks. They can't do that. Well, we'll bring in the boats. Yeah, can't do that. How do you get the stuff here? Well, the airplane would be the best. The airport is functioning fine. That would be the best place to get stuff in. But I bet that they can't land one of those C-17s that they used to evacuate Kabul full of whatever they needed to be full of help, full of sustenance and food. But one of the things that eats away at all of that is the tropical weather. If you can't leave a truck parked outside the restaurant for half an hour without the cooler on.
Right.
That food is ruined right now. And people who've been to tropical, well, if you visited Florida, it's pretty much the same thing. You have a hot, humid day in Florida, your stuff better be refrigerated because otherwise it's gone. It turns right away.
And it's going to be the same there, and they're going to have to, again. I think they're going to have agencies. I don't see any. I don't see any agency that's saying, "Well, we're not going to help out." I mean, FEMA's down there, and everybody's down there.
Everybody
Mike
is.
will be down there this week. Um, so you have all of these different agencies, and I got to put my hands up for FEMA, man. I mean, they just seem to be on the scene like the night after it happened.
Well, they never show up when it's good times. They only show
Yeah,
up when you
and
need
the
them.
FEMA was down there, and FEMA workers, they were doing what they could, trying to help settle up, get up shelters, get hotels to open up rooms to people, get the non-residents off the island.
I bet they still are doing that.
Oh yeah, in fact, I got to call my sister and find out if they have contacted her to see if they can use
Her house.
her house, her condo, to house people.
Is she thinking about that?
Yeah, I think she was. Yeah, I think she was considering it. Finding out, offering where she might be able to. Because they're actually, I thought they were 6 miles. They're 3 miles from the action.
That's damn close.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty close.
I heard a
So
story from my sister about some friends that live on Maui, that live up by Napili, where Kapalua golf course is. And they, of course, were without radio, television, power, electricity. All their amenities were been off the whole time, and they're still off. But they got hooked up to the internet somehow. And then that's the first time they knew how bad the problem was in Lahaina, because they hadn't gone into town. They were told to stay off the roads. They didn't know the banyan tree had burned. They didn't know the hotels had burned. They didn't know there was no more Front Street. They found out what had happened on their own island a week after it happened because of the news blackout. Not imposed, but as a result of the fact that you try and get the news when there's no water, no power, no nothing.
yeah, it's
So they were
horrible.
close to the action like your sister, but spared what so many people had suffered.
Yeah, it's horrible. Um, I've been saying to my sister for the past I don't know how many weeks, how many months, how many years that I really want to go back there. I found out it was so peaceful. It was such a great place to be.
Yes.
Just walking up and down Front Street and just hanging and it was just a cool place to be. It wasn't it wasn't like Honolulu where it was like a bunch of crazy people running around. It was just a mellow kind of it was what you thought Hawaii was supposed to be.
As opposed to Honolulu, which is a beautiful city, it is a city. There are no cities on Maui. There are
No,
towns.
they're just towns, and you just go and you be.
And the Hawaiians have a phrase for Maui. They call it Maui no Kaoi, which Maui is the best. And there's no T on that. Maui is the best.
Yeah,
And
they don't use they're actually looking for the T's so they can rebuild some buildings in Hawaii because
they'll
they've
take
lost.
they'll take the T today.
Oh man, Michael. Well, we wish them the best, man. Anything that I could do uh, to help them out. If there's anybody in Hawaii that thinks that my services would help them, um, I'm a free bird, pal. I'd get on a plane and go over there in a minute, whether it be looking at cars and helping people get their claims settled or
Well,
whatever it is.
you could trace that story. What's the plan to get thousands of burned out cars off the island when you can't when the only way to do it is put them on a ship somewhere for scrap? And then what's the solution for replacing those 200 or 2,000 or 5,000 cars with new product from someplace that's needed right now? How many cars you need? I need 5,000 cars. Where? Well, there's this little island. Well, how do you expect me to get them there?
Well, what it's going to do too is it's going to drive the price of cars up.
Yes.
I don't see any way that if you're a West Coast dealer, that you aren't figuring out a way to get your cars over there.
And they could put price controls on it, but then the dealers are reluctant to deal with it because they say, well, why don't I just sell my car in California? Why should I ship it to Hawaii and lose my percentage?
Right. Well, and that's where FEMA has to get involved. The government does have to say, okay, we're gonna buy these cars, and we're gonna resell them to people, and the insurance companies. That's where everybody has to sit in a room and say, okay, how do we do this? How do we get these cars replaced for these people?
And we're not leaving this room till we figure it out. So
Right.
mahalo in advance.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just California dealers that are looking at this. You got dealers in the Midwest right now that can't sell cars, and they're going, "Wow, how do I get my cars out there?"
Get them to LA or San Francisco. That's step one, and off or Seattle, and off they go. One thing
I
I've
will.
noticed, one thing I've been waiting for, Vinny, is an announcement about concerts in support of Maui. It is a musical centerpiece of the Pacific Ocean. There's so much
Yeah.
music that comes out of the Hawaiian Islands. You can't believe it. I would think that the music industry would put together an extravaganza like the concert for Bangladesh. And right now, you'd have to do it if you want to do it in Hawaii. You have to do it in Honolulu. You can't do it on Maui, or
Well, I
do it or do it in LA and have live shots.
well, I think that I'm sure that there's something planned for that. I saw something on YouTube the other night. I'm sure it's when some of this, I mean, listen, there's still bodies lying out in the fields there. They
Who
haven't
knows how
recovered
many?
everybody yet. So once they recover people and get people, you know, identified and that, I'm sure that there'll be because there are so many people that have houses over there. Hall and Oates, um, Todd
Todd
Rundgren
Lundgren.
has a place over there.
Yeah.
Uh, Oprah is on that island, is on the
Yes.
other side. I think Tom Hanks is over there. I think there's a ton of people that live on that other side
Yep.
where that long drive is. The people, I forget the name of the drive.
Well, the Road to Hana.
Road to Hana, yeah. I mean, there's a ton of people that live over there. Um,
There used to be a T-shirt that you could buy at the ABC stores. ABC is not affiliated with the American Broadcasting Company. It's like a big tourist store where you go in and you buy a surfboard that lasts you one day or a T-shirt for the next day. I buy all my T-shirts at ABC stores. I love them. There was a T-shirt called "The 57 Bridges to Hana," and on the back of it, every one of them was named, and they all had local names in Hawaiian and the translation, what it meant. And it was just one of my favorite shirts because you can't get to Hana without taking 57 bridges to get there.
yeah, I loved Hana. I loved that ride. I loved how beautiful those beaches were. The black beaches were unbelievable. I
I had to
was
buy a pair of pants in Hana because there was a dress code at this hotel we were staying. If you can believe that, you have to wear long pants at dinner. So I went to the Hasagawa General Store, the only place in town where you could buy pants, and my Levi's that I bought had been sitting folded for so long that when you unfolded them, there was lines of mold on the pants. So the first thing I had to do was take my Levi's. They didn't have a coin operated machine in the hotel that required a dress code. So I took them to the beach at the Black Sand Beach and scrubbed my jeans in the Pacific Ocean, hung them up. They dried quickly, even though Levi's don't dry that quickly. And I wore them that night. Who knew? But my favorite part was it was like we were on the dark side of the moon. Do you have pants? Pants. What would that be? We have mold covered Levi's that have been sitting, and then there was a nice display of Levi's. But when because it's in the tropics, you open them up and the mold had taken advantage. But I got rid of it. I scrubbed it in the Pacific Ocean with
There
black
you go.
sand.
All right. Well, I guess we're at that point.
We've done a morose, mellifluous Monday.
Well, we've talked about something that's important to talk about. Again, if people want to contribute to the Hawaiian relief efforts, I don't know what you could do if you want to volunteer. I'd have to check that out. But I know that CNN has a page that has all vetted charities that you can contribute to. Please beware that in these times, the worst of people
Scammers,
come out.
they do. In
Scammers
fact,
out there,
it's guaranteed. The worst people come out no matter where the tragedy is.
the horrible people are going to come out, and so beware. Know who you're giving money to for Hawaiian relief. It's one of the most important things that these people are going to need every dime they can get. And I know it's not easy sometimes. You say, oh, well, if they're living over there, they must have a lot of money, and they must have this.
No, that's not the case.
Some do,
Most
most
don't.
don't.
That's right,
Most
Vinny.
are working in those places where the really rich people go.
The average income on Maui is 30 grand. So we're not dealing with a race of millionaires who live separate and apart from us on another island. And also, one thing that is easy to forget, but easy to remember when you're on Maui, is everything on that island, from onions to cars, from blankets to medicine, from any product that you need to every product that you can't find, must come by plane or boat. There is nothing generated on that island except pineapple that they keep to themselves. And if you remember that, that's what they need. They need every element of life because it's all been taken away. There is no more of it to buy on that island. There's precious little of it on Kauai or Hawaii or Molokai or Lanai or the other islands because they're just small towns too, sitting on volcanic rocks. And it is as far away from the rest of the world as anything else on the planet. If you look at the spots that are furthest away from all other land, the winner for the whole planet of Earth is the Hawaiian Islands. They are as far away from everything else as you can be and still be on this planet. There's everything else on this planet, everything else, even Shpopakia, is closer to civilization than Hawaii, which is as far away from the rest of the world as it can be. And maybe that's why Hawaii works. Maybe that's why it's so special. That's why it's so magical. Because there's nothing around it except the Great Pacific Ocean and 20 species of shark.
You got to work to get there, and you got to work to get out of the water when the sharks come.
And they come every day. You don't have to call them. You don't have to ask them. They're happy to do it. They were coming anyway.
20 species of shark. Wow. I guess you can't go swimming.
Actually, you should go swimming. It's the best thing in the world. Sunrise swim and a sunset cruise. There you go. You get those two together. You can mix them up any way you want. You do each of those in a day, and you're going to be a kama'aina in no time.
God bless those people, man.
They got a lot of misery ahead of them, I'm afraid.
Yeah, they got a lot of misery, man. I know. I know from that misery. I've seen that misery before, and we're veterans of misery. So that's what we ought to call ourselves, Mikey, the veterans of misery. All right, man. I will talk to you Wednesday.
Wednesday it is, Vinny. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch up with you on Wednesday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise. Think about those in Hawaii. Do it, whatever you can for them, okay?
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Aloha.